Ladies and gentlemen, listen carefully. For all your life, you've been told how to succeed. Set goals, grind harder, outshine the rest. But has anyone asked why you chase all this? Has anyone told you that in this wild chase to become someone, you forget you already are? What if I told you that the best version of yourself is not hidden in some distant future, but quietly waiting beneath the noise you mistake for you? Stay with me, because once you understand this, you will stop forcing life and start flowing with it, and everything you desire will unfold not through strain but through clarity. If you think you've heard this before, you haven't. So listen on. First, wake up from this dream of who you think you are. Peel off the layers you've worn for so long, the expectations, the labels, the borrowed dreams. Who are you really, when you are not playing a role? Sit with that uncomfortable silence. It is the birthplace of your true self. Next, see the paradox. You can only grow by accepting where you are now. Improvement begins not by hating what you see in the mirror, but by loving it deeply enough to nurture it. A tree does not shout itself into blooming. It simply grows when it's ready, fed by good soil, warm light, and patience. But how do you find this good soil? You must detach from the noise. The world shouts endlessly for your attention. Social feeds, critics, doubts whispering that you'll never make it. Stop feeding the noise. Go for a walk alone. Sit in silence. Listen to what the quiet inside you wants to say. There you will find instructions clearer than any book can give. Then, act, but act with presence. Do not mistake busyness for greatness. When you wash a dish, wash it with care. When you speak to someone, listen like nothing else exists. It is not what you do, but how you do it, that turns life into art. And do not surround yourself with people who keep you comfortably asleep. Seek those who challenge your small self, who refuse your excuses. They are your mirrors and your tests. They will hurt your pride but polish your spirit. Now discipline. Forget punishment and force. Treat your daily rituals like tending a sacred garden. Wake early. Move your body. Feed your mind. Rest your soul. Do this with devotion, not resentment, and you will never feel trapped by routine again. Finally, measure your success by your peace. What is wealth if you live in fear? What is fame if you lose your center? True success is when you wake each morning free to think, free to create, free to love, unburdened by the masks you once clung to. So you ask, how do I become the best version of myself? Drop who you are not, sit with who you are, and watch. Your life will bloom without force, and success will arrive quietly, like a flower opening to the sun. Now go live it. Most people drift through life carrying an idea of themselves that was built by others, parents, teachers, lovers, society at large. This idea is like a costume that became a second skin. You wear it so long that you forget it's not really you. You think you are the shy one, the angry one, the failure, the success story, the good child, the disappointment. But who told you that? Did you decide this for yourself in the deepest silence of your being, or did you absorb it because it was spoken so often that you believed it must be true? To wake up from the dream of who you think you are is to dare to see your reflection without all these layers. It is uncomfortable because your mind loves certainty. Even if the mask is ugly, at least it is familiar. At least you know how to wear it. You know how to play the character. But once you begin to sense that the character is just that, a character, you stand at the edge of something terrifying and beautiful, freedom. Because if you are not who you thought you were, then who are you really? And if you are no longer bound by the old story, what else is possible for you? This is not just poetic talk. It is practical truth. Look at your life. How much of what you do is done to protect this costume? You stay in jobs you hate because you think it keeps your identity safe. You keep friendships that drain you because they remind you who you are supposed to be. You chase success not because you want it, but because the mask demands it to prove you are worthy, to prove you matter. But what if you could see the dream for what it is? You would notice that most of your struggles are just battles with shadows, ghosts that vanish when you look directly at them. The first step is awareness. Observe yourself without judgment. Catch the small moments when you slip into roles, when you laugh too loud to be liked, when you nod along to opinions you secretly disagree with, when you hide your truth so no one will reject you. Each moment is a clue. Here is the mask at work. The more you see it, the more it loses its hold. The dream begins to flicker, but awareness alone is not enough. You must practice courage. You must begin to act in ways that do not serve the mask but serve your essence. This may look like saying no when your habit is to please, speaking your mind when you usually stay silent, sitting alone when your old self would grasp at company to avoid facing loneliness. Each small rebellion chips away at the illusion, and then comes the deeper work, sitting in the silence beneath the roles. Many people fear silence because it strips away distraction. It leaves you face to face with your raw self. There is nothing to hide behind. But this is where truth begins. Sit quietly. Let the discomfort come. Breathe through it. Watch your thoughts like passing clouds. Don't fight them. Don't follow them. You will notice something astonishing. Beneath the noise there is an awareness that is untouched by your stories. This is you, the real you, the one who witnesses, who feels, who knows without words, the one who cannot be labeled as a winner or loser,
good or bad, worthy or unworthy, the one who simply is. When you wake up from the dream, you do not become someone new, you return to who you always were before the world told you who to be, and from this place you can grow freely. You can choose your path not out of fear, but from alignment. You can succeed not because you want to prove your value, but because you wish to express your fullness. You can love not to fill a hole, but to share an overflowing cup. So ask yourself, who would I be without my story? Who would I be if I did not have to live up to anyone's idea of me, not even my own old ideas? Sit with that question. Let it disturb you, free you, expand you. Every time you feel tempted to shrink back into your costume, remember, you are not here to play a part. You are here to wake up and live wide awake. The dream ends when you decide to see, and when you truly see, life begins, fresh, unknown, yours. To many, the idea of becoming a better version of themselves feels like a constant war. They believe they must fight their flaws, battle their weaknesses, and punish themselves into shape. They stand before the mirror and see an enemy to conquer, not a friend to understand. This is why so many fail to truly change, because they approach growth as an act of violence rather than an act of deep care. But life does not respond well to force. Just as a flower cannot be pulled open without tearing its petals, your best self cannot be dragged into existence by harsh demands and rigid expectations. The paradox is that real improvement begins when you stop trying to hammer yourself into perfection and start allowing yourself to unfold naturally, with awareness and compassion. This does not mean you sit idle, doing nothing while waiting for transformation to strike like lightning. It means you shift the source of your effort. Instead of using force to crush parts of yourself you dislike, you bring gentle attention to them. You see your anger, your fears, your procrastination, and instead of hating them, you ask, what are they trying to protect? What are they teaching me? Most flaws are only misguided attempts to cope with something deeper. When you understand this, judgment softens, and in that softening, change takes root. Think of how a good gardener tends a wild garden. They do not shout at the soil, or scold the weeds in anger. They observe, they understand the conditions, they nourish the earth, they pull the weeds by hand but also plant seeds with patience. The garden thrives not from rage, but from mindful care. In the same way, your best self grows from tending to your inner world like sacred ground, clearing what no longer serves you while nourishing what longs to bloom. Acceptance is not the enemy of ambition, it is the foundation of it. If you hate who you are now, you will drag that hatred into every attempt at growth. You will punish yourself for slipping, belittle yourself for every setback, and in doing so, you will exhaust the very energy needed to change. But when you accept where you stand, not with resignation, but with honest awareness, you gain the power to respond wisely, rather than react blindly. Imagine two people at the foot of a mountain. One curses themselves for not already being at the top, convinced they are unworthy until they stand at the peak. The other stands calmly, seeing the climb for what it is, a journey that will test, strengthen, and shape them. They accept the distance yet to go and begin with steady steps. Who do you think will reach the summit with less suffering? The one who accepts the mountain, or the one who resents it? This is the paradox. You improve not by rejecting who you are, but by meeting yourself fully, in your flaws, your rawness, your hidden fears. When you see yourself clearly, you stop wasting energy pretending, defending, or attacking yourself. That energy is freed for the real work, the daily humble steps toward better choices, kinder habits, deeper truths. It is easy to confuse acceptance with complacency. They are not the same. Complacency says, this is how I am, I cannot change. Acceptance says, this is how I am, and because I see it clearly, I am free to grow beyond it. The first is a cage, the second is a doorway. If you wish to be the best version of yourself, start here. Stand in front of the mirror without flinching. Notice the stories you tell yourself about what is lacking. Notice the quiet strengths you overlook. Notice the places that ache for care, not punishment. Meet it all. Let the parts of you that feel unworthy be seen, not so you can condemn them, but so you can finally love them into healing. When you do this, your growth becomes a natural unfolding, not a forced march. Your best version does not appear overnight, like flipping a switch. It appears in moments, when you choose a kinder word, a braver step, a healthier boundary. Each moment of gentle self-respect is a seed planted. In time, these seeds become a garden so alive that the old harsh self cannot survive there. Release the myth that you must fight yourself into greatness. Trust that your best self is already waiting within you, like an oak hidden inside an acorn. Your task is to give it what it needs, light, space, patience, and to get out of your own way. In this paradox, you will find the freedom to rise naturally, strong and rooted, into exactly who you were always meant to be. Noise is the constant hum that keeps you asleep. It is not just the chatter of the world around you, the gossip, the endless opinions, the social feeds that demand you scroll, compare, react. The real noise lives inside your own mind. It is the voice that tells you what you should be doing, who you should be, how far behind you are, how you are not enough yet, not ready yet, not deserving yet. This noise is the greatest thief of your true self. It drowns out the quiet instructions that come from within, the ones that would guide you to exactly where you need to be if only you could hear them. To detach from this noise is not about becoming a hermit on a mountaintop, though sometimes the mountain helps. It is about noticing how much of your day is spent feeding it. How many opinions do you absorb before you even taste your own thoughts in the morning? How many voices fill your head before you've had a moment to ask your heart what it truly wants? We have traded stillness for stimulation, depth for distraction, and in this trade we have lost the simplest path to true success, listening inward. Sit alone for an hour, really alone, without a phone, a podcast, a book, a plan. Notice the itch, the restlessness. The mind rebels. It demands a new feed to scroll, a new idea to chase, anything but silence. But if you can stand your own silence, you will start to notice a deeper sound beneath the surface noise, a calm sense of knowing, a whisper that says, do this, go here, trust that. This is your own wisdom, older than your fears, older than the world's noise. Most people never hear this voice clearly because they keep themselves so endlessly busy, and they spend decades climbing ladders that lean against the wrong walls. They chase goals that were planted in them by advertising, by family, by the competitive eyes of strangers who do not know their soul. They reach these goals, money, status, applause, only to feel emptier than before, because in the noise they lost the small clear signal that would have guided them to true fulfillment. Detachment is not indifference, it is discernment. It is knowing when to turn the volume down on the world so you can hear the faint call of your own truth. This might mean putting your phone in another room for a few hours each day. It might mean walking without headphones. It might mean telling certain people gently but firmly that their endless opinions are no longer welcome in the inner temple you are tending. It might mean changing your environment entirely, because some places feed the noise so well that your inner voice starves. Detachment creates space, and in this space clarity grows. Clarity is the real compass for success. Without it you are only guessing, copying, competing. With it your path becomes quieter but truer. You realize you do not have to outdo anyone else. You only have to align with yourself. From this alignment your actions gain an energy that does not come from forcing but from flowing. People around you will notice the difference. They will feel a calm strength in you, a rootedness that cannot be shaken by trends or gossip or the next big distraction. This stillness is not passive. It is not lazy. It is the opposite. It is fierce devotion to what is real. When you detach from noise, you begin to taste your own life again. Food tastes richer when eaten without scrolling. Work feels deeper when done with focus instead of fragmented attention. Conversations touch the soul when they are not drowned by constant interruption. And ideas, real ideas, not recycled slogans, rise from the depths when the surface is calm enough to receive them. And what does this mean for your success? Everything. Because true success is not scattered effort, but clear, deliberate action. When your mind is noisy, you waste energy worrying about how you look, what they think, what might go wrong. When your mind is quiet, you pour all that freed up energy into doing the next thing well, one clear step at a time. It is astonishing how much can be done when you stop leaking your focus to noise. If you wish to succeed in whatever way success means something real to you, you must guard your attention like sacred currency. Because that is what it is. The world will always want to spend it for you. Do not let it. Turn down the volume. Walk into the quiet. Trust that in the stillness, your own life will tell you what to do next. And when you act from that place, you will not only succeed, you will succeed in a way that nourishes you instead of draining you. That is the success worth having. Presence is not just a soft spiritual idea, it is a fierce practical power. Acting with complete presence means you pour the whole of yourself into whatever moment is in front of you, however small or ordinary it may seem. In a world addicted to splitting attention in 1,000 directions, true presence is rare, and therefore it is transformative. Look closely at your life and you will see, the moments you feel most alive are the moments you are most fully here. When you are deeply listening to someone you love, when you are absorbed in making something with your hands, when you are so engaged with a task that you forget time altogether. In these moments you disappear, and yet you are more yourself than ever. This is the paradox of presence. The self you cling to so tightly fades, and what remains is pure awareness, unfiltered doing, life in its raw form. When you act with divided attention, everything becomes dull. You are half writing an email while half thinking about dinner, half talking to your friend while half checking your notifications, half washing the dishes while half wishing you were somewhere else. This scattered energy infects the quality of what you do. Tasks feel heavier, people feel less connected to you, life feels drained of its depth. You may still achieve things, but there is no life in it, no art. You become a machine performing tasks instead of a being engaged in living. To act with complete presence is to return sacredness to the mundane. Washing a dish becomes a meditation when your mind is not somewhere else. Cooking a meal, folding clothes, driving, writing an email. When you give your whole attention, you bring beauty into what would otherwise be overlooked.
The smallest actions become the field where your best self is cultivated. Because presence trains the mind to focus, and focus is the hidden muscle behind mastery. Masters in any craft, music, art, business, even sports, know this secret. They are not simply skilled because they know more tricks than you do. They are skilled because they have learned how to give the fullness of their attention to the present moment. They are not half playing the guitar while half thinking about how many likes the video will get. They are not half running a race while half worrying about who is watching. They are here now. Every note, every stride, every brushstroke is whole, and wholeness is felt. It gives power to even the simplest act. Presence also makes you trustworthy. People sense when you are fully with them, when you look into someone's eyes and really listen, not planning your next reply, not scanning your phone. They feel seen, heard, valued. This is rare in a distracted world. Presence then becomes a quiet force that draws people to you, opens doors and builds connections deeper than charm or clever words ever could. How do you cultivate this presence? Start by noticing your habits. Notice when your attention drifts. Notice how often you perform tasks on autopilot. Notice how often you think about the future or the past while your hands are here now. Do not judge yourself, just observe. Awareness is the first step. Then practice. Take small, ordinary moments and give them your full focus. Drink a cup of tea without checking your phone. Listen to a friend without interrupting with your own stories. Work for 1 hour with no distractions, no tabs, no notifications, no background noise. Feel how the quality of your work shifts when you are fully there. Presence is not about perfection. Your mind will wander. That is its nature. The practice is to gently return, again and again, to what is here. Like training a wild horse, you guide your attention back with patience, not harshness. Over time, this training builds a mind that can stay where it is needed, when it is needed. Acting with presence does not just make you better at tasks, it transforms how you experience life itself. Because life is never happening tomorrow or yesterday, it is always now.
When you live distracted, you miss it. You may achieve 1,000 goals, but feel strangely empty, wondering where it all went. But when you live each moment awake, each moment becomes enough in itself. You find depth in places you never thought to look. A quiet conversation, the sound of rain, the taste of your food, the rhythm of your breath. Presence is the hidden ingredient in success, but more importantly, it is the doorway to a life that feels worth living. So when you act, act fully. Bring all of you to what you are doing, whether it is washing a floor or building an empire. This simple practice will do more for you than a lifetime of half-lived days ever will. Give yourself to the moment, and the moment will give itself back to you, complete, alive, and full of all the power you have been searching for elsewhere. Most people secretly crave comfort far more than they crave truth. Comfort feels safe, predictable, soothing to the parts of us that fear change. It whispers, "Stay here, you know this place, you know how to be this version of yourself." Growth is risky, truth is sharp, better to stay with what you know. And so without noticing, we build our entire lives around people and places that keep us comfortably numb, safe from the discomfort that true growth demands. But look closely at your own life. The moments that made you stronger did not come wrapped in comfort. They came disguised as heartbreak, disappointment, betrayal, or challenge. They came when someone told you a truth you didn't want to hear, when you failed at something you were sure you'd win, when someone you trusted forced you to see yourself differently, painfully, honestly. These moments hurt. But if you trace your strength backward, you'll see they were the sparks that woke you up. To grow, you must become intimate with this discomfort, not for its own sake, not because suffering is noble, but because truth often hides where you do not want to look. And the people who truly care about your growth will not let you look away. They will hold up mirrors when you would rather keep your eyes shut. They will challenge the stories you tell yourself to stay small. They will call out your excuses not because they judge you, but because they see more in you than you are willing to see in yourself. This is why it matters deeply who you allow into your inner circle. It is tempting to collect people who clap for you no matter what, who tell you you're right even when you're wrong, who soothe you when you should be shaken. But these people, however sweet their intentions, keep you stagnant. They feed your illusions instead of your potential. The right people, the ones who want your expansion, are sometimes the hardest to stand near. They are inconvenient. They ask questions that make you squirm. They will not pity you when you need a push. They will not coddle your ego when it needs to die a little so something truer can be born. Look around you. Who challenges you? Who tells you what you don't want to hear but need to? Who makes you feel seen beyond the surface? These are your real allies. Seek them out. Invite their honesty. Be humble enough to listen, strong enough to sit with the sting of truth. This does not mean you should let anyone wound you under the guise of helping you grow. There is a difference between honest challenge and cruelty. The ones worth keeping close are not people who shame you or belittle you. They are people whose truth is rooted in love. Their words cut, but they cut like a surgeon's knife, to remove what is diseased, not to leave you bleeding. You must learn to be this person for others, and for yourself. Can you stand in front of your own reflection and name the ways you are lying to yourself? Can you look at your habits, your patterns, your half-lived dreams and say, this is not working, and I am the reason why? Self-honesty is the highest form of self-respect. It is easy to blame your circumstances, your parents, your luck. It is harder to admit that you have outgrown parts of yourself but still cling to them out of fear. Once you see clearly, you are free to act. This is where true strength lives, not in pretending you are perfect, but in being open enough to evolve, and your evolution will never be tidy. Growth is disruptive by nature. It tears down what is false, so something stronger can stand in its place. It shatters illusions. It demands new choices. It often makes you feel alone for a time, because the comfort of the familiar must die before the new can root. So be brave enough to choose truth over comfort. Find friends and teachers who refuse to flatter you into stagnation. Find environments that stretch you, that demand you rise to meet them. Put yourself in rooms where you are not the smartest or the strongest, where you must learn, adapt, humble yourself. If you are always the biggest fish in a small pond, you will never grow beyond the pond's edge. Growth is not a single moment, but a lifelong practice of outgrowing your old skins. Each time you choose truth, each time you choose challenge over ease, you become a little larger than the day before. Your edges expand, your spirit breathes, and one day you look back and realize the comfort you gave up was never real, safety at all, just a cage disguised as a cozy blanket. Better to stand in the open air of truth, exposed but awake, than to sleep forever in a bed too small for who you are becoming. Discipline is a word that scares many people because they confuse it with punishment. They hear discipline and imagine strict rules, harsh self-denial, and a life drained of spontaneity and joy. But true discipline is not a prison. It is a gentle ritual, a devotion you offer to yourself because you know that without it, you drift aimlessly, pulled in every direction by impulses that care nothing for your deeper longings. When you hear the word ritual, think of something sacred, an act you repeat not out of force but out of quiet reverence for your own life. A ritual nourishes, it roots you, it gives shape to your days, so your days do not shape you at random. The difference between forced discipline and living ritual is the spirit you bring to it. When discipline is born of self-hate, it is brittle, cold, and exhausting. When it is born of self-respect, it becomes an anchor, steady, forgiving, flexible when needed, but always pulling you gently back to what matters. How nature keeps its own discipline without a whip or threat. The sun rises, the tides pull, the seasons shift. There is a rhythm to life, and when you align with it, you find that your energy naturally flows into patterns that support your growth. You do not have to beat yourself into shape. You need only create a garden where the best parts of you can flourish. A ritual does not have to be dramatic. It can be the simple act of waking before the world demands your attention and sitting quietly with your thoughts. It can be the commitment to move your body each day, not because you hate it, but because you wish to care for the vessel that carries your spirit. It can be writing a single page every morning, reading for 30 minutes at night, turning your phone off for an hour to feel your own life again. Small acts done daily build a life that feels purposeful and strong. The mind resists this at first. It rebels against repetition. It craves novelty, distraction, escape. But what seems boring at first becomes liberating once you surrender to it. A daily ritual removes the exhausting need to decide again and again whether you will honor your goals. When you brush your teeth, you do not argue with yourself each night. You simply do it because it is a habit woven into your being. Your deeper rituals can become this natural too, if you approach them with kindness instead of force. Treat your discipline like tending a fire. Feed it regularly but gently. Do not smother it with impossible demands, burning yourself out with rigid rules and guilt when you inevitably stumble. Instead, when you skip a day, you do not throw away the whole practice in shame. You return the next day, steady, forgiving, ready to begin again. This is how a ritual stays alive, not through perfection, but through patient return. Sometimes you will outgrow your old rituals. What served you once may not serve you now. The gym routine that felt right at 20 might need to soften at 40. The morning writing that once cleared your mind might need to shift to evenings when your house is finally quiet. Be flexible. Do not cling to discipline for its own sake. Let it evolve with you. But do not abandon it entirely, for without any structure, you risk drifting back into habits that weaken rather than strengthen you. If you look at people who seem calm, focused, and capable, you will find they do not live this way by accident. They have carved out space for what they value most. Their rituals protect their energy. They are not perfect, they fail, they falter, but they return, again and again, to the small daily choices that keep them rooted. Think of your life as a garden. Weeds will grow on their own. Chaos does not need your permission. It will happily fill every space you leave unattended. Discipline is the gardener's hand. It pulls the weeds, waters the roots, prunes what must go so that the healthiest growth can thrive. And it does this not once in a burst of frantic effort, but slowly, gently, day after day.
Ask yourself, what rituals does your future self need you to build today? Do not make them a punishment for who you are now. Make them an offering to the person you are becoming. Let your rituals be small enough to keep but meaningful enough to matter. Over time, these daily moments of devotion will shape you more deeply than any grand once-in-a-lifetime effort ever could. So do not fear discipline. Welcome it. Shape it with care. Turn it into a ritual so nourishing that when you miss it, you feel the loss not as guilt but as longing, a gentle pull back to your own center. In this way, you become the steward of your own life, tending to your days like sacred ground, and from this ground the best version of you grows, not through force but through quiet, patient, loving practice. We are taught, often without words, that success is something we can measure by what others can see: a big house, a bigger paycheck, the praise of strangers, a title on a door. And yet, how many people who seem to have everything still feel restless when the world goes quiet? How many people finally reach the top of their imagined mountain, only to realize the view is empty if there is no peace inside them to enjoy it? The truth is, success is not what you have, it is the state you hold within yourself, and the most precious state you can hold is inner peace. Peace does not mean a life without challenge. It does not mean you never feel anger or fear. It means that beneath all these passing storms, there is a calm ground inside you that remains untouched, steady, clear. This is the place from which real success grows, and without it, any external victory is just noise covering a deeper ache. Many people chase goals not because they truly want the thing itself, but because they believe the thing will finally quiet their restless mind. They think, if I can just make more money, people will respect me and I will finally respect myself. Or if I can prove them wrong, the pain of being underestimated will vanish. Or if I am loved enough, I will finally be able to love myself. But this way of living only multiplies the noise. The more you seek peace through outer achievements alone, the more you push real peace away. Because the mind that says I will rest when I have this, never stops craving the next thing, and when the next thing comes, it moves the finish line again. But there is a different path. It begins by asking a question that very few dare to ask honestly. What does success feel like inside me? Not look like, feel like. When you imagine living your best life, what feeling lives at the heart of that vision? Is it freedom, relief, joy, spaciousness? If you look closely, you will find that underneath all the desires for status, wealth, and recognition is a longing to feel peaceful and whole. You do not want the car or the house. You want what you imagine it will give you: the permission to relax, to feel worthy, to feel safe. When you see this, you understand the paradox. You do not have to wait for some future event to give you that feeling. You can begin to cultivate it now, from the inside out. You can measure your success each day, not by how much you have accomplished by the world's standards, but by whether you moved through your day with a quiet mind, an open heart, a spirit undisturbed by petty fears. This is not an excuse for laziness. On the contrary, a mind at peace is more powerful than a mind at war with itself. When you live in constant inner conflict, fighting regrets from the past, anxieties about the future, your energy is scattered like light through a cracked lens. But when you cultivate inner peace, your energy focuses. You become fully here, fully able to see what must be done and do it well, without burning yourself out trying to please everyone or prove something that needs no proving. How do you build this peace? First, you must notice where you lose it. Notice what robs you of your calm, the endless comparing, the conversations that leave you heavy, the habits that clutter your mind. Begin to clear these away gently, like clearing weeds from a path. Protect your attention as you would protect your home. Guard what you consume, the news, the noise, the opinions that drown your own quiet knowing. Then, root yourself in practices that return you to center. A walk in the early morning light, a few quiet minutes of breath before the day begins, a pause before you speak, a gratitude for what is already here. These small acts are not trivial, they are doorways. Each one reminds you that peace is not something to earn someday. It is a state you can touch now, again and again, until it becomes the ground you stand on. And so your success shifts. You do not abandon your goals. You still build, you still strive, you still create, but you do it from a place of fullness, not lack. You do it as an expression of your peace, not as a desperate attempt to find it. This is the greatest gift you can give yourself: to succeed in the world without losing your inner stillness, to rise high but stay grounded, to win on the outside and remain whole on the inside. You will find that the people who hold real power, quiet power, are not those who shout about their wealth or their status. They are the ones who move through life calm, clear, anchored in something the world cannot touch. This is the success worth building, and it is yours if you dare to measure your life by the peace you carry within. Now you see, the best version of yourself is not some distant dream waiting at the end of endless striving. It is not a prize you earn by punishing yourself or pretending to be someone else. It is already here, quietly waiting beneath the noise, beneath the masks, beneath the stories you inherited but never questioned. You wake up to it the moment you stop fighting yourself and start listening inwardly. You expand it each time you choose truth over comfort, each time you stand fully present in the smallest moment, each time you turn discipline into a loving ritual instead of a cruel demand.
You grow it when you detach from the noise, when you surround yourself with honest mirrors instead of easy applause, when you remember that success measured only by outward things will always be hollow if it does not first bring you home to your own inner peace. This is your real work, to peel away what is false, to stand gentle but unshakable in who you truly are, to live each day awake enough to meet life exactly as it is, with nothing to hide and nothing to prove. From this place your actions have depth, your goals have soul, your success becomes an echo of the clarity and stillness you carry within. Step forward not as someone chasing an illusion, but as someone returning to the part of you that never needed permission to exist. Tend your days like a sacred garden, nurture the habits that nourish you, welcome the challenges that sharpen you, and when the world tries to pull you back into the old sleep of noise and comparison, remember your greatest power is your presence, your greatest wealth is your peace. Be here, be whole, and let that be enough. From that wholeness, watch how quietly and beautifully the best version of you, and all the success that truly matters unfolds.
Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment, quiet, brutal, irreversible, when a man looks around and realizes no one is coming, not to save him, not to support him, not to listen, not to understand. At first, it breaks him. But something strange happens in that silence, something ancient. When the noise of comfort dies and the world turns its back, he doesn't fade, he forges. You see, a man without a tribe learns to hunt alone. A man without applause stops performing. A man without guidance becomes his own compass. The very absence of support becomes the presence of strength. And he begins to question everything, especially the idea that he needs anyone at all. He remembers the weight of his own spine, the power in walking forward without permission, the clarity in making decisions without consensus. And it is in that barren place of abandonment where the real alchemy begins. No one to call, he starts hearing his own voice. No one to ask for help, he becomes his own savior. No one to lean on, he learns how to carry mountains. The world fears such men, not because they're cruel, but because they are unshaken. Because when everyone else is scrambling for validation, this man has already buried his weakness in the wilderness of solitude and returned with a crown no one gave him. And when he speaks, he doesn't shout. He doesn't beg. He doesn't explain. He simply acts. You see, when a man is backed into a corner, he has two choices: collapse or evolve. And those who evolve from nothing, from rejection, from being cast out, these are the ones who return not as victims, but as storms. They do not seek revenge. That's far too small for them now. They seek mastery, precision, purpose. Their silence becomes terrifying. Their calm becomes mysterious. Their unpredictability becomes power. This is the man who no longer needs a stage. He is the show. But this is the man who no longer seeks love. He becomes love's absence and its standard. This is the man who doesn't demand respect. He radiates something far beyond. It commands. The irony? The world that turned away will one day look at him in awe. They will say, "We didn't see it coming," because they didn't. Because while they laughed, he listened. While they slept, he studied. While they judged, he trained. And when a man rises alone, when he builds without witnesses, when he strengthens in the shadows, he doesn't just grow, he becomes untouchable. You want to know what makes a man unstoppable? Not support, not praise, not even talent. It's the moment he realizes he's all he's got, and it's enough. So let them abandon you. Let them forget you. Let them mock your silence. Because the next time they see you, you won't be the man who needed saving. You'll be the one they fear, ever turning against. When a man finds himself utterly alone, with no hand extended, no shoulder to lean on, and no voice calling his name, something profound begins to shift inside him. This is not just loneliness, it is transformation. It is the quiet beginning of a metamorphosis. Isolation is not merely a void, it is alchemy. It is the furnace in which weakness is burned away and a new kind of strength is forged. In a world that constantly bombards us with the message that we need others to validate our worth, to confirm our existence, and to chart our course, a man who is left with no one discovers a different truth, one the crowd is too afraid to face. And there is no one to comfort him, he learns to comfort himself. When there is no one to encourage him, he learns to draw strength from the stillness. When there is no audience, he stops performing. There is something terrifyingly beautiful about this evolution, because it is no longer tied to anyone's opinion, no longer subject to external judgment. He becomes wild in the most sovereign way, untamed by expectation, unburdened by obligation, unshackled from the need to belong. That this solitude is not weakness, it is the fire where he melts his former self, the one that was dependent, uncertain, needing to be saved. That version of him dies in silence, and from the ashes a man rises, who doesn't ask the world to treat him gently. He doesn't wait for understanding. He doesn't search for sympathy. He builds without permission, he adapts without noise, he transforms without applause. In isolation, he sees the world clearly for the first time. The masks people wear, the shallow promises, the false alliances. And because he has nothing left to lose, he is free. Free to think without influence, free to feel without censorship, free to act without needing validation. That kind of freedom is unsettling to most people, because it cannot be controlled. It does not beg, it does not conform. It simply is. There is pain in this process, yes, but pain is the price of awakening. It sharpens the edges, it strips away illusion, it demands that he either collapse or rise. And when he chooses to rise, it is not with loud declarations or revenge-driven motives. It is with stillness, with presence, with a terrifying clarity. Because the man who has walked through the cold corridors of abandonment and survived them no longer fears darkness. He carries it, he uses it, he has made peace with it. Isolation forces him to learn the language of his own soul. He begins to hear the whispers of purpose buried beneath the noise of expectations. He becomes fluent in silence, in discipline, in direction. He no longer wastes time explaining who he is or proving what he can do. That part of the journey has passed. Now he is building. Now he is becoming. Every hour spent alone has become an investment. Every tear has become fuel. Every rejection a form of redirection. He does not need to prove them wrong. He needs only to prove himself right. And that is why he becomes the man everyone will one day fear. Not because he is cruel or vengeful, but because he is unshaken. Because he is no longer accessible to manipulation. Because he no longer depends on others to define him. Because he has walked through the fire of his own solitude and come out not wounded, but awakened. This is the alchemy of isolation. It does not weaken, it refines. It does not destroy, it remakes. It does not silence the man. It gives him a voice so powerful, he no longer needs to speak. When a man has no one to turn to, the world may think he is broken. To the truth, he is becoming the man no one will ever dare to break again. When a man stands alone, with no support system to lean on, no comfort to cradle his uncertainty, he is thrust into a position that demands one thing: adaptation. Necessity becomes his teacher, and survival his curriculum. In that moment when he realizes no one is coming to save him, something primal awakens. It's not desperation, it's not panic. It's a silent, defiant resolve, the understanding that the burden is his and his alone. And in carrying that weight without complaint, he begins to change. He learns not just to endure, but to evolve. Necessity breeds power. That's the secret. Not comfort, not privilege, not applause, but pressure. The kind of pressure that crushes the weak version of him and forces the strong one to emerge. He stops looking outward for strength because he's too busy uncovering it within. There is no fallback plan. There is no second option. He begins to sharpen his mind like a blade. He trains his thoughts to obey him. He disciplines his actions because there is no room for chaos in a life where one mistake could cost him everything. He becomes his own structure, his own foundation, his own answer to every problem life throws at him. Nature. This power doesn't roar. It builds in silence. It's not about grand displays of dominance or empty words. It's about becoming dependable to yourself. When no one else shows up, he does. When everyone else turns away, he turns inward. In that process, he stops blaming others, he stops waiting for someone to change his situation. The man who learns to carry the full weight of his life on his own shoulders stops asking the world to go easy on him. He stops asking why things are hard. Instead, he prepares for them to be harder. And in doing so, becomes unbreakable. He learns to solve problems with his bare hands. He learns to quiet his emotions in the face of chaos. He learns to keep moving forward when everything in him wants to sit down and give up. This is where his edge is forged, not in comfort, but in pressure. While others are distracted, addicted to validation, numbing themselves with shallow pleasure, he is refining himself in silence. He begins to realize that every challenge is not an obstacle, but an invitation to become more resilient, more focused, more strategic. Life, in its rawest form, is not fair, but it is honest. And when you stop expecting rescue, when you stop waiting for someone to pull you out of the storm, you begin to understand that the storm was never there to drown you. It was there to teach you how to sail your own ship alone. This transformation is subtle. The world doesn't notice it at first. They see the same man walking the same streets. But inside, he is not the same. His mind is sharper, his spirit more still, his presence more commanding, not because he was taught by others, but because he had no choice but to teach himself. And self-taught power is the kind that cannot be bought, cannot be broken, and cannot be faked. He no longer complains about the weight he carries because it made him who he is. He no longer envies those who had it easy because their strength was never tested. He understands now that necessity is the most honest form of growth. When everything is stripped away and all you're left with is yourself, you discover whether that's enough. And when it is, you become dangerous. Not because you want to hurt anyone, but because no one can hurt you anymore. A man who has learned to carry the full weight of his life alone, without flinching, without seeking pity, is a man the world eventually notices, but only after it's too late to control him. He's already built, already battle-tested, already beyond the need for approval. This is the kind of power that is not loud, but permanent. And it all began the moment he realized, there's no one to carry me, so I must carry myself. And that's why strength, real, untouchable strength, is born. Rejection is often misunderstood. Most people see it as a wound, a scar, a mark of failure. But for a man with depth, for a man who chooses to look beyond the pain, rejection is a revelation. It doesn't just hurt. It awakens. It cracks open the illusions he's been living under. It shows him who's real, who's not, and more importantly, who he was depending on. And when that dependence crumbles, he sees clearly, perhaps for the first time, that he was giving away pieces of himself to people who never deserved them. Rejection strips him of comfort, but it also strips him of weakness. And when a man has no one left to impress, no one left to wait on, and no one left to convince of his worth, he begins to turn inward. What he finds there isn't just strength, it's sovereignty. He starts to realize that needing no one is not loneliness, it is power. A power that's quiet, untamed, and deeply rooted in self-mastery. The man who is rejected enough times no longer fears being left out. He begins to prefer solitude, not because he hates others, but because he's discovered something more valuable, peace that cannot be interrupted, growth that isn't dependent on praise, and purpose that isn't swayed by approval. He transforms rejection into redirection. The door that slammed in his face didn't stop him. It pointed him toward a door he was meant to build for himself. He no longer seeks to be chosen because he has chosen himself. That decision, though silent, is the beginning of his evolution. He begins to invest in what he can control. His thoughts, his skills, his body, his time. And every hour he spends improving in silence becomes a seed. Seeds that with time and discipline will grow into results the world cannot ignore. The same people who turned their backs on him will one day turn their heads in awe. Because there's nothing more unsettling than watching the man you underestimated rise without you. Rejection pushes him away from people, but it pushes him deeper into purpose. Without the noise of opinions, without the distraction of shallow relationships, he has the space to build, to sharpen, to rise. He doesn't have to explain himself anymore. He no longer asks for permission. He's not bitter, he's focused. Not angry, just detached. There's a difference, and that difference is the foundation of quiet power. He starts to speak less and do more. He stops reacting emotionally and starts responding with strategy. The world sees a man who seems colder, more distant, less available. What they don't realize is that he has outgrown their approval. He has stepped into a place where he is no longer ruled by feelings, but by discipline. He has learned that feelings lie, that not being wanted doesn't mean you aren't worthy, that being cast out doesn't mean you don't belong somewhere greater. In solitude, he discovers his sharpest weapon, clarity. Clarity about who he is, what he values, and where he's going. This man no longer needs to be invited to the table. He's building his own, brick by brick, in silence. And by the time they notice, he's already seated at the head of something they cannot touch. The man who was once rejected becomes the man no one can reach, not because he built walls, but because he built standards. He doesn't hate the people who turned their backs on him. He thanks them, because in walking away, they gave him something more valuable than love, independence. And that independence turned into obsession. Obsession with becoming untouchable. Obsession with self-mastery. Obsession with becoming the version of himself that doesn't just survive rejection, but rises because of it. In the end, rejection did not destroy him. It revealed him. And the man who once needed others to see him now walks past them, unseen, unbothered, and unshakable, because he has become the one thing this world respects more than charm, talent, or popularity. He has become undeniable. When a man has no one to follow, no mentor to lean on, and no voice to echo in the silence, he is forced to become something very few ever dare to become, his own authority. This isn't about arrogance, it's about necessity. In a world that constantly tries to shape you, label you, mold you into something acceptable, The absence of guidance becomes a strange and powerful gift. He's no longer told what to do, who to be, or how to think, and so he begins to think for himself. This kind of solitude is not empty, it's raw space. Space that demands him to explore who he is without filters. He must create his own blueprint, write his own code, walk his own line. There's no applause, no correction, no affirmation. At first it feels like chaos, but with time it becomes creation. With no map, he learns to chart territory others are afraid to even see. Without advice, he builds intuition. Without reassurance, he develops inner certainty. Most people cling to instruction. They follow orders, conform to expectations, seek approval like oxygen. But when none of that exists, a man has no choice but to become the source of his own direction. And in doing so, he begins to shed the layers of conditioning, one by one. He stops parroting what he's heard. He stops walking in borrowed footsteps. He stops living through second-hand beliefs. And from that silence, a deeper voice emerges, one that is not loud, but immovable. He becomes his own guide, his own teacher, his own ruler, not to dominate others, but to master himself. He no longer needs anyone to validate his path because he has walked it alone, through doubt, through darkness, through silence. And every decision he makes, every boundary he sets, comes not from pride, but from deep alignment. He is not moved by trends, not swayed by noise, not broken by rejection, because he has already lived without the crutch of approval. This inner authority makes him dangerous not to others, but to the systems that rely on his dependence. He cannot be manipulated with guilt. He cannot be controlled through fear. He doesn't flinch when questioned or fold under pressure. That's what terrifies people, not his power, but his independence. He stands not on borrowed knowledge, but earned wisdom. He acts not to impress, but to express, and his decisions are carved from lived experience, not borrowed philosophy. The world struggles to understand men like this, because they can't be labeled. They don't fit into categories. They are too quiet to be followers, and too self-contained to be leaders in the traditional sense. They are simply sovereign. And sovereignty is uncomfortable for those still waiting for permission to be themselves. When this man speaks, it's not loud, but it's final. When he walks away, he doesn't look back. When he builds for the long haul, not for applause, not for recognition, but for the satisfaction of knowing it came from him and only him. There's a serenity in that, a calm that comes from never being owned by anyone, not emotionally, not mentally, not spiritually. This man doesn't need a crowd. He doesn't need a movement. He doesn't even need to be understood. What he needs, what he has, is alignment. And that alignment makes him unstoppable. He's not chasing peace, he is peace. He's not proving strength, he is strength. Because every piece of who he is was forged in solitude, tested in silence, and confirmed by nothing but experience. He's no longer tempted by shortcuts, no longer hungry for validation, no longer bound by the rules of others. He's carved out a life that makes sense to him, and that's enough. It's more than enough. It's everything. In a world full of borrowed voices and second-hand lives, the man who becomes his own authority doesn't shout. He doesn't compete. He simply moves. And when he moves, the ground shifts not because he demands it, but because he no longer needs permission to be powerful. That's the kind of man the world eventually respects, even if it never understands him. There is something terrifyingly powerful about a man who stops talking and starts working. In a society addicted to noise, where everyone is quick to post, to announce, to prove, silence becomes a weapon. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of discipline. The man who no longer needs to explain his moves, defend his process, or share his dreams is the man who has already begun to transform. He understands a rare truth, that real growth, real mastery, and real power happen in the dark, away from the spotlight. When a man starts moving in silence, the world grows uneasy, not because they hear him, but because they don't. His absence from the noise is unsettling to those who once felt superior through distraction. While others are broadcasting shallow progress and chasing temporary validation, he is buried in his purpose. He's not just working, he's building every day, brick by brick, habit by habit, sharpening his craft, strengthening his mind, and outgrowing the version of himself who once sought approval. He stops arguing. He stops defending his past or predicting his future. He no longer tries to convince anyone of who he is or where he's going. That energy is now sacred. It's being redirected into his mission, his rituals, his relentless evolution. In silence, he begins to gain something louder than any speech, results. Not instantly, not loudly, but inevitably. Because consistency does what noise cannot. It endures. The man who walks this path doesn't need applause because he claps for himself. He doesn't require reassurance because his discipline reassures him. And he no longer craves company because he has become whole. While others fear solitude, he thrives in it because that solitude became his sanctuary, the place where he forged his mindset, broke his bad habits, and designed the life he refused to beg for. This silence is not emptiness, it's preparation. It's the silence of a seed in soil, the silence before the storm, the silence of someone becoming too focused to fail. And that is what makes him dangerous. Not that he is louder, faster, or stronger, but that he is unwavering, that he's mastered the art of restraint, that he doesn't need recognition to move with intensity, and doesn't need permission to take control of his life. The ones who talk loudest often do the least, but the man who vanishes into work is shaping something the world can't yet see. A body that commands respect, a mindset that won't break under pressure, a routine that multiplies strength over time, a lifestyle built not for approval but for impact. And when the world finally sees what he's become, they won't believe it, because they never saw it coming. And that's the beauty of moving in silence. It's not just about avoiding attention. It's about becoming unstoppable before they ever get a chance to doubt you. You don't give them the satisfaction of watching your climb. You let them choke on their doubt when they see you standing at the top. He no longer announces his goals because his life is starting to reflect them. He doesn't post every step because every step is sacred. He doesn't need to shout to prove he's winning. His peace, his power, and his patience are enough. It's not what he says that defines him, it's what he builds in silence, what he overcomes when no one is watching, what he becomes when no one believes. Because the man who disappears into discipline is the one they'll remember, not for the noise he made, but for the results he couldn't hide. The man who is built in darkness does not fear the light. In fact, he becomes the light. But it is important to understand what that darkness is. It's not just loneliness. It's not simply silence. It's pressure. It's uncertainty. It's pain without comfort, questions without answers, effort without applause. It's the cold space where doubt visits daily and comfort is a stranger. And yet, it is in that very space, abandoned by the world, overlooked by many, that a man is refined. He learns to sit with himself. Not run, not numb, not distract, but sit. Face the truth of who he is, the truth of what he's allowed, what he's tolerated, what he's neglected. In the silence, the masks fall off. The excuses fade. And what's left is raw potential. Potential that no one else saw, because they didn't look deep enough or didn't care to. But he sees it now. And more than seeing it, he begins to shape it. Every repetition in that darkness, whether mental, emotional, or physical, builds muscle. Discipline becomes his compass. Reflection becomes his weapon. He is no longer tempted by surface-level winds. He's going deeper, because now he understands anything easily gained can easily be taken, but what's earned in the dark is owned forever. He stops measuring time by weekends or paychecks or praise. He starts measuring time by growth. Did I move forward today? Did I become more focused? Did I say no to distractions? Did I push through the doubt, through the fear, through the tired voice in my head telling me to quit? These become his metrics. And slowly, this man becomes something unrecognizable, even to his former self. The pain didn't break him. The silence didn't bury him. The rejection didn't harden him. Instead, it carved something sacred, a will, a focus, a presence. Now, when he walks into a room, it's not the clothes he wears or the words he speaks that command respect. It's the energy, the weight of someone who has walked through the fire and came out clearer, sharper, stronger. Not louder, stronger. The world doesn't see the nights he didn't sleep, the early mornings he showed up with nothing but grit, the countless moments he had every reason to stop but chose not to. They'll see the man, but not the making. That's fine. He doesn't need them to understand the journey, because he didn't do it for them. He did it because the man he was could no longer survive in the world he envisioned. So he died, and a better one took his place. That's what the darkness does. It kills the version of you that's weak, needy, distracted, emotional, reactive. And in its place, it gives you the man who doesn't beg for peace, he creates it. Who doesn't chase love, he attracts it. Who doesn't demand respect, but receives it because he's earned it. He understands now that the man the world fears is not the one who talks the most, or shines the brightest, or gathers the crowd. It's the one who became something powerful in silence, the one who suffered without becoming bitter, the one who lost everything but rebuilt himself stronger, the one who needs no confirmation, no validation, just a mission, and the discipline to carry it out. When he reemerges, they won't recognize him. And that's the point. He didn't endure all of that to remain the same. He didn't suffer in silence to prove anything to anyone. He evolved in the dark so he could lead in the light, not with words, but with presence. Not with noise, but with results. Not with ego, but with earned power. Because the man who was built in darkness doesn't just walk into the world stronger. He walks in untouchable. When a man has no one to turn to, something extraordinary happens. He turns inward. And in that sacred solitude, stripped of validation, comfort, and guidance, he is reborn. He stops waiting to be saved and starts forging his own strength. Rejection becomes redirection. Silence becomes transformation. He learns to walk without applause, to build without permission, and to rise without being seen. Each setback becomes a stepping stone, each lonely night a classroom, and every ounce of pain becomes fuel for something greater than the world could ever predict. He becomes the kind of man who doesn't shout, but whose presence speaks volumes. The kind of man who no longer needs the crowd, because he became the storm they never saw coming. And by the time they realize who he's become, it's too late. He's no longer the man who had no one. He is now the man no one can touch, the man everyone will one day fear, because he feared no one but his own wasted potential.